Breaking news from the Middle East. Israel announcing it's calling up 16,000 reservists to join the fight against Hamas in Gaza. Both sides suffering casualties in this ongoing conflict, but the vast majority reported in Gaza. Israel saying that's partly because Hamas is using civilians as human shields. I want to talk right now with Senator Lindsey Graham out of South Carolina. He's written a letter with 78 other senators calling their colleagues' attention to this issue. And Senator, good morning to you. What was the purpose? What was the purpose of the letter?
Well, Senator Schumer has just arrived. The purpose of the letter is to allow our colleagues to understand Hamas for who they are, a terrorist organization who wants for Israel what al-Qaeda wants for us and the tactics they use. We have video, and you have it in your possession, where Hamas is encouraging their civilian population to run toward targets that Israel has distributed leaflets to stay away from. So as Israel sends text messages, sends emails and leaflets to avoid an area, Hamas is telling their people to go to that area to become martyrs. That's what this video shows, and that's why Senator Schumer and myself want the world to know who Hamas is. And
the New York Democrat is with us now as well. And Chuck Schumer, welcome back here to America's Newsroom. Tell us the reason why you think it is so significant to have this resolution and the message that comes from it.
Well, first, let me say we all regret the loss of life on both sides of the Gaza-Israel border. It's horrible. But when you think about it, who is to blame for this? Who has caused it? It's Hamas. And what Hamas is trying to do is put the blame on Israel so they can continue doing what they're doing. Hamas first lined civilian areas, hospitals, mosques, homes with rockets. Then they provoke a war, first by kidnapping 3 Israelis and then by shooting rockets into Israel. And then when Israel responds, they tell their civilians, stay there. It's clear that Hamas is not looking out for the well-being of the average Palestinian. And yet too many people, when they watch the news reports, everyone has correspondents in Gaza, and they see the Israeli rockets hitting and hurting people, they forget that. And the purpose of this video, which we've sent to our colleagues, and we're glad that you're showing, will show what Hamas's really evil purposes are.
But you know what Hamas will say in return. They'll say you hit a UN school and there's civilians hiding there, Senator. And
well, the last UN school that, you know, there was a whole big fuss, and when I saw the news reports, they acted as if Israel hit it. And 3 days later, it comes out that Israel has shown that it was Palestinian rockets that hit it. Israel has documentation where rockets have been hidden in 2 of these UN schools. And so what we hope will happen here is 2 things. First, Israel will be allowed to take away the 2 trump cards Hamas has, the tunnels and the rockets. And then the Palestinian people, with Hamas in a weakened position because the Egyptians have closed off those tunnels, the Palestinian people will find some new leadership, because Hamas is horrible for them. And if you ask the average Palestinian in Gaza, from what I'm told, they're mad at Israel, but they're also mad at Hamas.
We talked to Ambassador Dan Gillerman last hour. It appears that 35 tunnels have been located, and the Israelis have been looking for these since 2003. He told us that more than half have been destroyed. To Senator Graham, then, Hamas seems to be more alone in this war than in the previous conflicts. Yes, it's getting support from Iran, and yes, there's support from Syria, and yes, you could argue there's support out of Qatar. But the Egyptian government is leaving them alone. Now, what is the difference? And why in this conflict would it be that way?
Okay, the big difference is Hamas over time is being exposed for who they are. When the international community provides aid, instead of building a hospital or a school, they build terror tunnels to attack Israel. Saudi Arabia, most of the Gulf states, except Turkey and Qatar, are giving Israel the space to defend themselves against a terrorist organization that's disruptive to the entire Mideast. I just want the United States government to be informed and give Israel the space to deal with the terror tunnels and the rocket attacks. I think it is amazing that most of the Arab world is silent or actually pushing back against Hamas. I don't want our country to come to the aid of Hamas. That's what this is all about, this
Okay.
information.
I want Senator Schumer to answer that as well. I don't know what you think about that. Then I've got one more question quickly on this.
Yeah, I think the same as Lindsey does. Hamas is a very bad, evil organization. It's not interested in the Palestinian people. It's interested in terror and the destruction of Israel. They're very smart about what they do militarily. They're a little more adept this time than last time, and hence there are more casualties on the Israeli side. But at the end of the day, the leaders of the Arab world, most of them, realize that Hamas is as great a danger to their stability, a much greater danger ultimately than Israel.
I want to move to just one more topic for Senator Schumer on this. Our colleagues in Washington, D.C. have apparently confirmed through your office that you were at the White House the night of the attack on Benghazi, September 11, 2012. What were you doing there that night, and what contact did you have with the
Nothing to do with, there was nothing to do with Benghazi or the president. It was discussing other domestic issues.
All right. Was that debate prep, or can you describe that to us?
No, it was not debate prep.
Can you tell us what the president was doing that evening? And the
I don't
interaction
know.
you had
I didn't see. I don't believe I saw the president that evening. I'll have to go check my records. But I go over to the White House all the time, and I don't. Almost all the discussions I have are about domestic policy. That's been my forte.
Thank you, Senator.
I just one thing? The West Bank is occupied by Palestinians, and Israel and the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority, have a working relationship. The West Bank is prospering. There are no rockets or tunnels coming from the West Bank. The goal is to put.
And one other thing, Lindsey, in the West Bank, actually, the Palestinian Authority goes after the terrorists.
Exactly.
They know what a danger
we need that in
is.
Gaza.
They know what a danger is. Gaza has had, the Hamas has had a stranglehold on the Gazans, and hopefully, once they're denuded of rockets and tunnels, they will be able to throw that off.
I want to thank you both for your time. Senator Chuck Schumer,
Thank you.
Lindsey Graham. Appreciate it.